Join us today during the Jeep Celebration event. Right now, get 20% below MSRP for an average of $15,178 under MSRP on the purchase of a 2023 Jeep Grand Cherokee Overland 4xE or Summit 4xE. Not compatible with lease offers or with any other consumer incentive offers. $15,178 average based on 20% below average MSRP from all 2023 Grand Cherokee Overland 4xE and Summit 4xE models in dealer stock. Residency restrictions apply. Take retail delivery from dealer stock by 4/1. Jeep is a registered trademark.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Streamed and Screened, an entertainment podcast about movies and TV from Lee Enterprises. I'm Terry Lipshetz, managing editor of the National Newsroom at Lee, and co-host of the program are Bruce Miller, editor of the Sioux City Journal, a longtime entertainment reporter, and you recently focused in on one of the greatest shows of all time, something I grew up on.
Me too, right?
Well, that's right. We're about the same age, right?
We're exactly the same age. I'm sure it's just a mere clerical error on my birth certificate.
That's right.
That's all. It's Fraggle Rock.
Fraggle Rock.
Watched it when you were young. I watched it when I was old. But what did you like about it?
It was such a fun show. So they came out in January of '83. So that would have made me about 7 years old or so, because it's, we're talking 41 years ago. So we're dating myself a little bit here. But it was just a fun kind of creative show. It was interesting. I mean, I grew up on the Muppet Show, the classic Muppet Show, with Kermit and pigs in space and
wow,
all that, so that was one of my favorite shows. So this was just kind of a natural progression. But yeah, no, it was just a fun kind of creative, it's a little mysterious because it's took place kind of in this hidden land that nobody knew about. The Fraggles were just kind of out there doing their thing.
Well, and they were kind of a counterculture to the Muppets. They were like not Muppet related, but Muppet-ish, if that means it. And they were trying to do some more social kind of issues and talk about things on a broader scale, and decided to just take it away from the rest of that world. And HBO was the first one who bought in on it. And it went international. It was a big hit around the world. But then it's had many different incarnations over the years. There was an animated version, and then they brought reruns back, and they tried a lot of things. But now it's kind of gotten a second life. It's back in a different way. And I think they've got a really good showrunner in this, John Tartaglia. I don't know if you know the name, but if you're familiar with Avenue Q, he was one of the stars of Avenue Q, and they had puppets in that. And in fact, they were making fun of the kinds of things that the Muppets were doing. They were dirty puppets in Avenue.
That's right, yeah.
He really is a great puppeteer. He worked with the Henson Company. He did Sesame Street things. He had his own show called Johnny and the Sprites. And then they hired him to help kind of get this going. He really does. He's like you. He knows everything about those early days of the Fraggle people. So they can rely on him for, checking themselves to make sure that it's a valid thing they can do. There are rules to these worlds, you can't, no, they don't do this. No. And somebody's got to be that, and that's John. And he was in a number of other shows. He was in Shrek on Broadway. He played Pinocchio. But there are things, Lumiere he was in, and Beauty and the Beast. So he has an acting career, and he does do several of the characters in Fraggle Rock. So you'll see, how that all factors in. But for them, it was a real kind of an eye-opening situation, because they combined, and you'll hear this in the interview, they combined old Fraggle Rock people with new Fraggle Rock people. And they had a summit of sorts, and they talked about things that worked and things that didn't work. And I think it set them up for a real good reboot, particularly since they're getting big names to do some of the voices for the characters, and they're introducing characters that were straight characters in the past.
All right, so you have you sent me a clip. It's about 5 minutes long, roughly.
They'll get John Tartaglia talks the most. You'll hear him beginning, and then there's Hallie Stanford, who's one of the executive producers, and Matt Fussfeld, who is one of the head writers on the show. And they all will weigh in a little bit, and we'll talk some more about the Muppets after they're done.
Perfect. All right, here's that interview.
John, I've got to ask you, are Fraggle Muppets different than other Muppets?
Ooh. As characters, they are in the same world as far as they're so layered and they're so beautifully conceived, like all of Jim Henson's creations are. Puppet-wise, they're actually in mostly very simple puppets. You know what I mean? They don't have a whole lot. The Fraggles, they don't have a whole lot of extra things. Moki has an eye blink and Wembley has eyes that can roll, but that's it. Otherwise than that, they're pretty standard hand puppets. So I think their simplicity and our ability to perform them lets them be more detailed, if that makes any sense.
Sure. Is there a book? Is there like a guidebook when you deal with these things? Because it's been a while,
You know what? Yes and no. I mean, I think that there's when we first relaunched the show, luckily, most of the people who worked on the original are still with us, and they were so excited to come together with the new team to say, hey, take this and run. And it was exciting to hear Holly actually organized this amazing thing called the Fraggle Gaggle that was basically a gathering of new and original team and advisors and child psychologists and climate experts and you name it. And to kind of talk about all the places that the original series didn't get a chance to go that they would have wanted to, and to kind of take that and carry it on. So it wasn't like starting from scratch because the original series has such a foundation, but it was a little bit like, we're going to find this out ourselves, like how to make Fraggle Rock. And so far we've been very lucky.
We have such an amazing creature shop. I just wanted to point this out that like they had puppets from the original series. And yes, it was absolutely extraordinary. So we could learn. You said, is there a book? I thought, no, but there's a pattern.
Yeah,
there are patterns to be used. And also like the doozers themselves, the present day modern builders of the doozers, they just like performed surgery on some of these older doozers just to like see how the mechanics are made. And they actually took some of the learnings from the past to bring back to these doozers today. So
it was really
thought that was fascinating.
Yeah.
It looks like, though, you have a huge cast, especially in some of the scenes. Is that I would assume that that's a difference. And what's the most you've had on a set?
I think our highest total ever puppeteers was 25 at a time. And I could be wrong, but I think the original series, they never had more than 16 or 17 people, I think. And we had 25 puppeteers. And what was amazing is on a set as big as the Fraggle Rock set is, that sounds like a lot, but it's amazing how fast 25 people go. And part of my job was to stage the scenes with the puppets, and I'd be like, okay, we have to have more people, right? They're like, nope, you've used them all. We had a giant cast, a lot of friends from Calgary. We hired a lot of local puppeteers, and that was one of my favorite parts was meeting all these new talented people.
So then when does the script and the song, when do we do that? Is one thing driving the other, or?
Yeah, we in the writers' room, myself and Alex Cuthbertson and Johnny, we had 20 weeks in the writers' room. A lot of it before production started, where we would, map out where we wanted the season to go, over arc, and then just a lot of different issues that we wanted to tackle, and we would write these scripts and start picking out places that songs would go. We'd always have one legacy song from the original that Johnny would recommend because he's the ultimate Fraggle fan, and Harvey Mason Jr., our music producer, would reimagine that and also work on a new song. So a lot of the stuff would be in motion by the time we got up to Canada and we're shooting it.
Yeah, and there were nine writers in the room, and it was great because we all came from different backgrounds, so it was kind of like everyone contributed. It was like a bunch of Fraggles writing the show.
So, John, as a big fan, then does that make you want to do certain things because you say, "Oh, I remember this, and I must bring that back"?
Yeah, I mean, there were definitely certain things that it was like the must-haves in the show. Like when we were first reconceiving it, like you've got to have these 5 Fraggles, you've got to have the Doozers, you got to have the Gorgs, you got to have these storylines, But then it was kind of fun, once we had a rhythm. Occasionally of saying, there were these really cool creatures that never got explored called the Ditsies, like who are the sources of light for Fraggle Rock. And then that evolved into these new characters called the Flutterflies in the first season. Or there'd be a great background puppet. And, we were looking for a character named for Bongo, which is this hilarious character. And we took this background puppet who's kind of weird looking. And we're like, that's Bongo. And then we could write for that. And so it was fun to think of like, little one-shot characters from the original series that we could now write as main characters.
All right, Bruce, thanks for that interview. Looking forward to the series. Need to check it out a little bit. I think I might have watched an episode or two because this is on Apple TV Plus, correct?
Yeah, it's had one season and now it's starting its second season, Back to the Rock. And you'll see a bunch of very fascinating new things, new characters, new kinds of, ideas and things. But as you heard, John says it's pretty basic. They're not high-end puppets. These are like the put your hand in the glove kind of thing. And I did get a chance once to visit the Henson Creature Shop or whatever they call that Muppet place, make the things. And bizarre, because you'll see heads of characters like on posts that they haven't put the costumes on. And I don't want to say which ones because it'll be like creepy if you think about it. But they did let me put my hand in one of the Muppets. And it is real, very simplistic. A lot of the personality of the puppeteer comes out, and you get a chance to kind of feel their essence in the process.
Well, and I guess what's interesting now too is because Jim Henson, when we think of Jim Henson, we think now of Disney, but because Disney bought the Muppets, but they didn't really buy everything because this is not it's on Apple TV Plus. This is not Disney. This is not Disney Plus. This is an Apple program. So this was not part of the Disney acquisition.
And neither was Sesame Street.
Right.
So, they're all kind of, there are characters that cross over. You'll see Kermit on Sesame Street and you'll see some of those other things. But for the most part, they're individual worlds. And the Henson family did rebuy the rights to some of those Muppets back. And so it's a very complex kind of situation. And when Jim died, it was a very curious what will happen to this world situation. He had finished the 3D or 4D movie that they have at Disney World. It's in the studios section. And that was kind of his last hurrah with the Muppets. And at the time, I was there doing interviews with those people who were still part of the Muppeteers, and they were worried. They wondered, will we see any more Muppet movies? Will we see any more Muppet things? And there was sort of this kind of pall that was over the whole operation because they thought this was the last hurrah. Well, as we know, there have been many reboots, many different kinds of things. ABC did a series with the Muppets, and they've had changes in voices. The same puppeteers aren't doing the voices of certain ones. So if you listen closely, you can tell a little different situation, but come on, the Muppets are the Muppets.
The Muppets are the Muppets.
When they had a Christmas Carol, remember Muppet Christmas Carol?
Sure. Oh yeah.
Okay, so I was at the studio for that, and they had said, well, we're going to have Christmas tonight. It was like, summer or whatever. Mm-hmm. And you think, okay, that's good. Well, you get into this sound stage, and it was snowing, and it was like a Dickens village, and they had turkey and the whole schmear, and there's Piggy and Kermit greeting you. Now, have you ever seen anything? And it was like the real ones. It was not like people in costumes that were standing there. It was like Miss Piggy and Kermit talking to you. And it was the voices of the ones who did the characters for the movie. And then at the end of the evening, they gave you a gift. If you want to just say, this is the best thing I've ever done in my life, it was. And Disney knew how to kind of monetize that and make that something else. I wish they would do more, though, now with the Muppets. I think there's more there to be mined, if you will.
When we made our McDonald's Spicy Chicken McNuggets, you were praise hands emoji. Then we ran out, and you were streaming tears emoji. Now they're back, so you can be grinning face with sweat emoji. Order ahead on the McDonald's app.
And get Money Mouth Face emoji with 2 orders of crispy, irresistible 10-piece McNuggets, spicy or classic, for just $6. Limited time only. Prices and participation may vary. Cannot be combined with any other offer. Single item at regular price.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Yeah, the Muppets, and it's always been interesting too to see, because they did have that show on ABC a few years ago, and it was very adult. Like, it was aimed not at the kids, it was aimed at people like me, because there was, like Kermit had relationship issues. He's trying to be a showrunner of a TV program. I kind of enjoyed it. It kind of missed the mark at times, but it was also enjoyable at times. I didn't know how to feel about it completely, but it was sort of fun for the moment. I wasn't shocked it got canceled when it did either.
I think because those original shows were a lot of ad-libbing. They were people who would just come up with something. They knew how the characters would speak. And so they were very good at kind of, really, Curly? They would find some kind of way of retorting to the other character, and it worked. And I think with the new series, they were too close to the script, and they needed to be a little more irreverent. Just my thought. But like I say, I've gotten a chance to interview a lot of the Muppets and their Muppet handlers, Muppeteers, whatever you want to call them over the years. And it is fascinating to watch that, because if you look at the performer, they really are becoming one with this puppet. I don't know if you have it, but I have an interview that I did with Cookie Monster.
Oh, yes, we do.
Cookie, I got to meet the real Cookie. And the interesting thing he said was that there are really only 2 Cookie Monster puppets that they use, because when Cookie is new, he doesn't look right. He needs to be kind of beaten a little bit. He's got to have that chewed fur that you need to have to be a real Muppet. And so it was fun. For me, it was fun. So I got to do 5 questions with Cookie.
Yeah, so we're going to go ahead and cut to this. Now, I need to set this up because I have listened to this. This is like hard-hitting journalism right here, Bruce.
Hey, come on.
You did not throw, there are no softballs to Cookie Monster right here. You gave him 5 tough questions. Did you win a Pulitzer or anything for this?
I'm sure it's in there somewhere. It's got to be.
It's probably nominated. You would have known if you won, but you were probably nominated. Okay, so we're going to go to this. It's very short interview with Cookie Monster.
I'm with Cookie Monster, and we have 5 questions. You ready, Cookie?
Five questions. Okay, what?
Favorite color?
Well, you know what that is. Blue, of course.
Favorite letter?
C is for cookie.
Favorite cookie?
Chocolate chippy.
Favorite number?
Oh, 100, because me want 100 cookies right now.
And your favorite fan?
Oh, this guy.
You got it right, Cookie.
Me
Thanks.
like your questions.
All right, Bruce. Thanks for that interview. That is some hard-hitting journalism. I mean, as I said, yeah. I mean, you didn't let him off easy. You're like, I need to know.
Right.
I need to know, right?
When we're limited, some of those journalists that are out there now trying to pigeonhole various and sundry coaches on the NCAA, they need to take a lesson, because if you just hit them with the tough questions right away, they can't back away.
Yeah. So, we're talking a little bit about Jim Henson and the Muppets and all the things he's been involved with. But when you look at like the Creature Shop, because obviously the Fraggle Rock is a slightly different look for the Muppets, but he's done so many different projects. The Jim Henson Creature Shop over the years. You look at like Yoda, which was a creation, I believe, of Jim Henson. It was voiced by Frank Oz, who's of course Fozzie Bear. So there's those,
Piggy.
Right? Yep, and Piggy. The Dark Crystal. There's another movie which Jim Henson was involved with, which is another kind of like offshoot, and it's not these necessarily like fluffy, feely good kind of Muppets. It's a little bit darker. So a lot of involvement.
Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
You may remember the first year of Saturday Night had Muppets, they were not successful. And that whole story will be covered in a new movie coming out this year called SNL 1975.
Wow.
So you get a chance to, and Jim Henson is a character in the film.
Okay. That's fun. I'm going to look forward to that. Growing up, some of my fondest memories kind of go back to the Muppets. Like, I always loved watching the Muppet Show when that would come on, because that was again in my wheelhouse. I don't remember, it was like, one day a week. It was that 30-minute program. I think my parents let me stay up late to watch it when it would come on. It was like on at 8:00, which is maybe a little past my bedtime at the time when it was out. But I think back to like, Pigs in Space and
right,
all the skits to that and the guest stars, like it's insane. Of course, like John Denver is very closely associated with the Muppets because he did the Christmas album and everything. But some of the actors that were on the show, like Alice Cooper, Candice Bergen, Harry Belafonte, John Cleese, Julie Andrews, Elton John.
That was the show you wanted to do.
Absolutely.
You could throw down with any of those characters and they would come right back and have something to, to maybe nudge you a little bit too. So
Right.
it was the show to do.
Yeah, that's fun. I also, because I collect records, right? And I still
Right.
have my childhood record collection. One of the earliest records I have is from the Muppet movie, the original soundtrack to the
No.
Muppet movie from, what was that, 78, 79, I think it came out. So
Rainbow
yeah,
Connection.
Rainbow Connection.
And that was one of those songs that should have won Best Song, and how it
Absolutely.
did is beyond me. But it has won before. I think the last kind of good Muppet movie, and maybe I'm hedging here, but did win a Best Song Oscar.
Oh,
So-
that's good.
So the Muppets have won an Oscar somehow.
Yeah.
But it's funny how they don't really put them in a category for like animated film or anything like that. There should be a place for them because I think they make them compete with live action because
Yeah.
Muppets, live action, there they are.
Right. Yeah, and it's always interesting with the way they kind of cross over in the universe. Like Muppets exist in our normal universe, and the three movies for me, like there's been quite a few, and I think probably the last one that I really got into maybe was the Christmas Carol version of the Muppets. But the three kind of like original movies, which were the Muppet movie, The Great Muppet Caper, and Muppets Take Manhattan. And that third one, Muppets Take Manhattan, it's just such a fun movie because it really felt like real life. You're putting on this huge production, and they got married, Piggy and Kermit.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's all it takes. Well, in the new Fraggle series, you will see kind of some things that are advanced. Remember how we were always wondering how they could do Kermit riding a bike?
Right.
Something that would be, kind of interesting like that. Well, there are new things that they're doing with the new Fraggle Rock. Then you'll go, wow, I can't believe that actually happened. But look for it. You'll see some fun things.
Yeah. All right. Well,
And you get sweet radishes.
Oh.
So if you don't know what sweet radishes are, be ready.
okay. All right. Well, this sounds exciting. You've completely made my day, made my week.
Well, then happy Fraggle Day rock to you too, I guess.
That's right.
Is that, what would we say? What would be the right Fraggle greeting?
I don't even know. It's been a while since I've.
You better bone up and find out
I
about all
should.
that stuff.
I should.
Because I am not a Fraggle person, but I am a Muppet person.
Yep. All right. Sounds good. Anything else on the horizon we need to be looking for?
Not this week, not yet, because we're going to have Easter, and that'll be a bunch of that kind of pause. And then we're coming back, and there are a lot of new TV shows and movies that you're going to want to see. So next week, we'll come back with a new look at things, but you had to have a Fraggle week. Come on.
Absolutely. All right. Well, on that note, we will wrap things for this week. And be sure to tune in again next week for another episode of Streamed and Screened.
When we made our McDonald's Spicy Chicken McNuggets, you were praise hands emoji. Then we ran out, and you were streaming tears emoji. Now they're back, so you can be grinning face with sweat emoji. Order ahead on the McDonald's app.
And get Money Mouth Face emoji with 2 orders of crispy, irresistible 10-piece McNuggets, spicy or classic, for just $6. Limited time only. Prices and participation may vary. Cannot be combined with any other offer. Single item at regular price.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
How powerful is Cox Internet? Powerful enough to let your band members in Vegas, Phoenix, and Rhode Island jam like you're all in the same garage. Get Cox Internet powered by fiber with America's fastest download speeds. It's internet built for tomorrow, today. Cox, always building better. Cox Internet is connected to the premises via coaxial connection. Speeds vary and are not guaranteed. Cox terms and other restrictions may apply. Analysis by Ookla of Speed Test Intelligence Data. Fixed median download speeds. US Q3 2023.